The packed suitcases stood by the door like silent leather-bound accusers. Sarah, my wife of 15 years, wouldn't meet my eyes. Her gaze was fixed on the driveway, where a gleaming white convertible waited. "David, it's over," she said, her voice as cold as the marble countertops we'd once picked out together. "I can't keep living this almost life. Mark can give me what I deserve." Mark. The man with the yacht and the smug, sun-kissed grin. She adjusted her designer sunglasses. "We're flying to Monaco tonight. Try not to be so predictable." She walked out, leaving the door open. The silence was deafening, broken only by the trupping from my phone. A crypto alert. Bitcoin had just crossed another milestone. Predictable. That's what she called me. I suppose to an outsider I was. I'm David Keller, founder of CipherCore Analytics, a small but respected data security firm here in San Diego. My life wasn't about flashy cars or weekend trips to Cabo. It was about building digital fortresses, about seeing the architecture behind the chaos. It was about quiet, sustained effort. That's how I found Bitcoin, a decade ago. It wasn't a lottery ticket, it was an extension of my work. While my peers were buying stocks in companies they knew, I was investing in the cryptographic principle I understood better than anyone. To Sarah, the few thousand I sank into it was just nerd money, a digital ghost. She'd roll her eyes when I'd mention it. "Can you buy groceries with it, David? Can it pay for our dream house on the coast?" She only ever saw the steady, boring husband who drove a 10-year-old sedan. She never saw the silent, exponential power compounding in my digital wallet. The alert on my phone wasn't just a milestone, it was a Richter-scale event. Sarah had just traded a man who built his own fortune for one who merely inherited his. The door swung shut with a soft click, a final, gentle punctuation mark on 15 years of marriage. I walked over and locked it. The house, our house, suddenly felt cavernous. Every object held a memory of her, a ghost of a shared laugh or a forgotten argument. My phone was still in my hand, the glowing green number, a stark contrast to the gray emptiness around me. That number. It was meant for time's cursus. I remembered a Sunday 2 years ago. We were parked on a cliffside road in La Jolla, looking down at a house. It wasn't a mansion, but it was perfect. A modern design of glass and redwood, built right into the rock, with a single sweeping wall of windows that faced the Pacific. Our dream house. Sarah had sighed, her breath fogging the passenger side window. Imagine, David, waking up to that view every single day. "We can," I'd said, feeling the familiar spark of my quiet ambition. "CipherCore is growing. The Bitcoin, it's doing really well. We're closer than you think." She turned from the window, and the wistful look on her face hardened into something I'd come to dread, pity. "Oh, David," she'd said, patting my arm like I was a well-meaning child. "Your nerd money isn't going to buy a view like that. We need a real windfall, not digital dust." She'd pointed down the coast. "That's yacht money down there." Digital dust. That's all she ever saw. She never understood that I wasn't gambling. I was building. While she was chasing the illusion of wealth, the immediate gratification of a designer bag or a fancy dinner, I was laying a foundation, brick by cryptographic brick. She wanted the life, but she had no patience for the work. Mark, with his inherited fortune in gleaming toys, was a shortcut. He was the real windfall she'd been waiting for. I looked down at my phone again, refreshing the wallet balance. The number hadn't changed. It was still there. Solid, real, more than enough. The pain in my chest was still there. A hot, sharp thing. But beneath it, something else was taking root. Cold, clear, and focused. An idea. A plan. It wasn't about winning her back. It was about showing her exactly what she'd thrown away. Not just the money, but the man who made it. The predictable man. My thumb hovered over the screen, then scrolled through my contacts. I didn't call my lawyer. I didn't call my best friend. I found the number for the top real estate agent in La Jolla, the one who specialized in coastal properties with 7-figure price tags. The phone rang once, twice. A polished voice answered. Juliana Pierce speaking. I took a breath. Juliana, I said, my voice steady. My name is David Keller. There's a house on the coast, glass and redwood. I believe you know the one. I'd like to make a cash offer. There was a beat of professional silence on the other end of the line. Juliana Pierce, whose face I'd only seen on billboards where she smiled next to sold properties worth more than my entire company, was processing my request. The glass house on Almeria Drive, she said, her voice smooth but laced with a practiced skepticism. That property isn't officially on the market, Mr. Keller. It's a pocket listing and a cash offer. Are you a pre-qualified buyer with our agency? No, I said, walking into the kitchen and opening the fridge out of habit. It was half empty. Sarah had cleared out her organic yogurts and sparkling water. But I will be. I can have proof of funds delivered to you within 60 minutes. The capital is liquid and ready for immediate wire transfer. Another pause. I could hear the subtle click of a keyboard. She was looking me up. CipherCore Analytics would show up. Respectable, but not, buy a La Jolla landmark in cash, respectable. The sellers are particular, she said, her tone a polite brick wall. They'll need more than a promise. It won't be a promise, I said, my voice colder than I intended. It will be a cryptographic verification of assets from a regulated U.S. exchange, followed by a 7-figure escrow deposit by end of business day. Send me the secure link. My data security firm built the encryption protocol for 3 major banks. I assure you, my verification will be immaculate. The mention of my work, the quiet authority in my voice, changed the dynamic. The skepticism in her tone was replaced by curiosity. Very well, Mr. Keller. I'm sending the link to your phone now. The call ended. The link arrived. I initiated the transfer, a series of clicks that felt both monumental and hollow. While the blockchain did its silent, inexorable work, I walked through the house. Our house. In the bedroom, a small, pink, sticky note was stuck to my computer monitor. Asterisk, don't forget to water the ficus. A final, domestic jab. A reminder of the predictable man she was leaving behind. I ripped it off and crumpled it in my fist. Then I saw it. Tucked into the wastebasket by her vanity, half hidden under a tissue, was a receipt. It was from a high-end travel agency, dated 3 months ago. 2 first-class, one-way tickets to Nice, France. The departure date was today. This wasn't a sudden decision. It wasn't Mark sweeping her off her feet last week. It was a plan. A meticulously executed extraction. For months, she'd been smiling at me, sleeping next to me, all while knowing she was already gone. The pain I'd felt earlier was a dull ache. This was different. This was a surgeon's cut. Clean and deep. The betrayal wasn't in her leaving. It was in her staying so long after she'd already left. My phone buzzed. It was Juliana. Her voice was entirely different. All warmth and efficiency. Mr. Keller, David, we've received the verification. I could hear the shock she was trying to suppress. The funds are well beyond the asking price. The sellers are prepared to entertain an offer immediately. Can you meet me at my office in an hour? We can have this signed today. I'll be there, I said, my gaze falling on a framed photo of Sarah and me on our wedding day. Her smile looked different now, predatory. Just one condition, Juliana. I want an aggressive close. 10 days. And absolute ironclad discretion. No press, no announcements. No one knows I'm the buyer until the keys are in my hand. Speed and privacy cost extra, she warned. Good, I said, picking up the photo and looking into the eyes of the woman I used to know. I'm counting on it. I drove to La Jolla in a state of strange, cold clarity. The anger and pain were still there, but they had been compressed into a diamond-hard point of focus. Every traffic light, every palm tree swaying in the ocean breeze, seemed sharper, more defined. I wasn't the man who had woken up this morning. That man was a ghost. I was the architect, of what came next. Juliana's office was a temple of glass and steel overlooking the ocean, designed to make clients feel both powerful and poor at the same time. Today, I was the former. The deference in her eyes was a new experience. The skepticism was gone, replaced by a voracious curiosity. She didn't ask where the money came from. In her world, the only question that mattered was, is it real? Mine was. The documents were spread across a vast mahogany table, a mountain of paper for a 10-day close. I read every line, my mind shifting into the familiar gear of forensic analysis. I wasn't just reading legal clauses. I was debugging a system, searching for vulnerabilities. "You're very thorough," Juliana noted, tapping a perfectly manicured nail on her tablet. "My work requires it," I said without looking up. "The details are where things fail." She slid the final signature page in front of me. "The sellers accepted your offer without a single counter. They were enthusiastic. The wire transfer for the full amount will be initiated upon your signature. This is, without a doubt, the most decisive transaction I have ever witnessed." I picked up the pen. The ink flowed, signing away a fortune and a past in one clean stroke. My hand didn't shake. I felt nothing but the quiet hum of a machine executing its code. It was done. The house was mine. Walking out into the afternoon sun, the world felt different. The air tasted of salt and victory. I hadn't even gotten the keys yet, but I could already feel the cool glass of the house under my fingertips, see the Pacific stretching out before me from my new living room. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I opened it. It was a picture. Sarah and Mark on the deck of his yacht, champagne flutes raised. The Monaco coastline was a postcard-perfect backdrop. Her smile was wide, triumphant. His was smug. The text beneath it dripped with faux pity. Thinking of you. I know this is hard, but it's for the best. Some people are just meant for more. Hope you're doing okay. Meant for more. She had no idea. I looked at her beaming face, at the life she thought she'd secured. Predictable. She expected me to be heartbroken, pathetic, watering a ficus in our empty house. She expected a desperate, angry reply. I typed back a simple, measured response. Have a great time. I've just been busy sorting out some things on my end. A new property investment. I hit send. Then I blocked the number. Let her wonder. Let that little seed of doubt was a seed. My text message was the water. And for the next 10 days, as the lawyers and banks did their silent, furious work, I gave it time to grow in the dark. I didn't reach out. I didn't post a single thing on social media. I became a ghost, letting the silence amplify her curiosity. My own house felt like a temporary rental. I slept in the guest room, boxed up Sarah's remaining belongings myself, and stacked them in the garage. Each item, a half-used bottle of perfume, a book left on the nightstand, a cashmere sweater she'd forgotten, was a small, sharp sting of betrayal, but I didn't dwell on it. I treated it like a data cleansing operation, purging a corrupted file system. My days were spent not at home, but at CipherCore. My team noticed the change immediately. I'd always been a hands-on but reserved leader. Now I was possessed by a ferocious energy. "We're acquiring a shell company," I announced in a Monday morning meeting, my voice echoing in the small conference room. My top 3 engineers looked at me as if I'd grown a second head. "A shell company for what, David?" asked Alex, my lead programmer and oldest employee. "We don't have that kind of capital." "We do now," I said, pulling up a projection on the screen. It was a list of small, struggling tech startups. "And we're not just acquiring one. We're acquiring 3, one in AI-driven threat detection, one in quantum encryption, and one in hardware security. We're going to absorb their tech, hire their best talent, and triple our R&D budget by the end of the quarter." The room was silent. They were looking at the numbers. The numbers were impossible. "This is tens of millions of dollars," Alex finally stammered. "Consider it a strategic investment in our future," I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. "I've secured the private funding. Get me the due diligence reports by Wednesday. I want to move as fast as the law allows." They saw a man who had suddenly landed a whale of an investor. They didn't see that I was the investor. The predictable David they knew was gone. In his place was a man who moved with the speed and decisiveness of a lightning strike. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about forging the man I was supposed to be before my ambition was blunted by Sarah's small-minded materialism. She saw my work as a hobby that paid the bills. She was about to see it become an empire. But building an empire required more than just money and code. It required a story. And I needed a master storyteller. My research led me to one name, Lena Vance. Her PR firm in Los Angeles didn't handle clients. It curated legends. She didn't issue press releases. She orchestrated narratives that defined markets. She was notoriously selective, terrifyingly expensive, and brutally effective. I didn't call her office. I found the encryption key for her firm's impenetrable private network. It took me less than an hour and sent her a direct, encrypted message. *Ms. Vance, I have the capital and the technology to reshape the data security landscape. You have the skill to make the world notice. I require your services. Let me know when you can spare 15 minutes. D. Keller. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. A restricted number. "Who is this?" Her voice was clipped, impatient, and laced with the controlled fury of someone whose fortress had just been breached. "The man who just demonstrated why his company is about to be worth $1 billion, I replied calmly. "You build narratives, Ms. Vance. I build the reality they're based on. I think we can help each other." There was a long pause. I could hear the grudging respect fighting with her anger. "My office. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Don't be late." She hung up. Lena Vance in person was exactly as I'd imagined. Sharp, impeccably dressed, with eyes that performed a full financial and psychological audit in the first 5 seconds. Her office was a minimalist masterpiece of concrete and chrome. "You have my attention, Mr. Keller," she said, gesturing to a chair that probably cost more than my first car. "It's not often my morning involves a security audit from a prospective client. Impress me." I didn't talk about Sarah. I didn't talk about revenge. I laid out the business plan. The acquisitions. The new technology. The massive capital injection. I painted a picture of a sleeping giant, cipher core, ready to awaken and devour the competition. She listened, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she leaned back, steepling her fingers. "It's a good story. Aggressive. Disruptive. But why now? What's the catalyst?" "The catalyst is me," I said. "I've been underestimating my own potential." "And the money?" she asked, her gaze unwavering. "An anonymous backer is a weak point in the narrative. The press will dig." "The money comes from an early, strategic investment in cryptographic assets." "It's my money," I said. "The narrative isn't about some faceless venture capitalist. It's about the quiet founder who saw the future a decade ago and is now ready to build it." A slow smile spread across her face. "Oh, that's much better," she purred. "The visionary hermit. The quiet genius emerging from his lab. The media will eat that alive. We won't just announce the expansion. We'll launch Talks. I have a venue for the launch," I said. "A private event. Top-tier tech journalists and industry analysts only." "Where?" "My new residence in La Jolla." She raised an eyebrow. "Mixing business with personal? It can be messy." "The property is part of the brand," I said, my voice hard. "It's a statement. Glass and redwood, built into a cliffside. It says transparency, strength, and a clear view of the future. It's non-negotiable." Lena studied me for a moment longer, then nodded. "All right, Mr. Keller. You're not just buying PR. You're buying a coronation. We'll craft a story so compelling that by the time we're done, people will feel like they knew you were a genius all along." On the 10th day, Juliana Pierce met me at the gates of the glass house. She handed me a sleek black box containing the keys. "Congratulations, Mr. Keller," she said, her professional demeanor barely masking her awe. "Welcome home." I walked through the house alone. It was empty, a blank canvas of polished concrete floors and vast, silent windows. The late afternoon sun streamed in, setting the dust motes dancing in the golden light of the Pacific. It was a cathedral of ambition, and for now I was its only parishioner. My phone buzzed on the cool concrete floor. It was Lena. "The invitations are out," she said, her voice a weaponized purr. "Digital, encrypted, and timed for simultaneous delivery. The RSVP list is already filling up. Forbes, Wired, The Wall Street Journal, they're all coming. They smell a story." "Good," I said, my voice echoing slightly in the vast, unfurnished space. "What about the other invitations?" There was a pause. I could hear the smile in her voice. "Your ex-wife's new benefactor, Mr. Mark Thorne, received a personal invitation to his business email. He's listed as a prominent, quote, angel investor. It would be a professional slight for him not to attend. And of course, the invitation encourages him to bring a guest." It was perfect. Not a direct attack, but a flanking maneuver. An invitation he couldn't refuse, delivered to the one part of his life he took seriously. His image. "You're certain they'll come?" "David," Lena said, with the patience of a master explaining a simple trick. "People like Sarah and Mark are not driven by love or loyalty. They're driven by status and curiosity. You've gone silent. You've become a mystery. She expects you to be broken. He expects a chance to gloat. They will walk into that house because their own egos are leading them on a leash. All you have to do is hold the door open." While I began orchestrating the transformation of the empty house into a stage for my third act, halfway across the world, Sarah was growing bored of paradise. I could picture it perfectly. The sun-drenched deck of the yacht, the endless turquoise water, the attentive staff. It was the exact life she'd described wanting for years. But a prize, once won, can lose its luster. Mark, I imagined, was charming in short bursts, but his conversation, like his wealth, was inherited, predictable and lacking in substance. The silence from my end would have been unnerving for her. No angry texts, no pleading calls, no sad posts on social media. I had simply vanished from her digital life. My cryptic text about a, quote, property investment was a single, dissonant note in the triumphant symphony she had composed for herself. It was a splinter under her nail. Then, Lena's email arrived. Mark would have seen it as an opportunity. "Look at this, darling," he'd have said, showing her his phone. "Your ex is having a little party for his computer company. How adorable! We should fly back. It would be rude not to show our support." His condescension would be a mask for his own insecurity. Men like Mark despise men like me, the ones who build things. For Sarah, it would have been an irresistible pull. A chance to confirm her decision was the right one. A chance to see my new property and pity me for it. A chance to get the final word. I'm sure she told herself it was about closure, or perhaps retrieving the last of her designer shoes from the garage. But in reality, it was about proving to herself that the man she left was exactly as small as she remembered. It was a fatal miscalculation. She was judging the man I was, not the man I had become in the crucible of her betrayal. They flew back to San Diego on the day of the party. The sun was setting as their rented convertible sped along the coast, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. I imagine Sarah felt a surge of victory, returning to the city not as the wife of a mid-level tech owner, but as the partner of a titan. She was coming back to see the predictable life she'd escaped. Mark was driving, probably talking about stock prices or his new speedboat. He would have tapped the GPS. Almost there, Almeria Drive, that name. It would have hit her first. A flicker of disbelief. There are many beautiful streets in La Jolla, but we only ever talked about one. What was the number again? She would have asked, her voice tight. He'd have glanced at the screen. It just says, The Glass House. Odd name. The car would slow, rounding the final familiar curve in the road. And then she would see it. Not some sad little condo, not a monument to my supposed failure, but the house. Der Stamm Dansch per days. The one from her daydreams, the one she'd dismissed as an impossible fantasy fueled by my digital dust. It was no fantasy. It was real, ablaze with light, pulsing with music, and the murmur of powerful people. Valets in sharp black suits stood at the entrance, and standing just inside the wall of glass, silhouetted against the Pacific sunset, holding a glass of whiskey, was her predictable, boring husband. The man she'd left behind. The king in his new castle. The shock on her face would not be about the... I saw the exact moment the realization hit her. The convertible slowed to a crawl, its engine a low thrum against the backdrop of my party. Sarah's face, illuminated by the dashboard lights, was a mask of disbelief. The smug confidence she wore like a second skin had evaporated, leaving behind a raw, ugly confusion. Mark looked from the GPS to the house, his jaw tight. They were trapped in the spotlight of their own ambition. They had to get out. To turn back now, in front of the valets and the distant figures mingling inside, would be an admission of utter defeat. I watched them hand the keys over, their movements stiff and unnatural. They walked up the stone path not as conquerors, but as prisoners walking the plank into a room full of their judges. I didn't move to greet them. I let them find me. They pushed through the vibrant crowd, their eyes scanning the room until they locked on me. I was standing with Lena and a senior editor from Forbes, a man whose articles could make or break companies overnight. David? Sarah's voice was a choked whisper, all the cold certainty gone. Mark, ever the performer, forced a hollow laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Keller, quite the party. You must have landed one hell of an investor. He was fishing, trying to find a logical box to put me in, to re-establish his perceived dominance. I turned slowly, giving them my full attention. The small circle of our conversation paused, sensing the shift in energy. Mark, Sarah, so glad you could make it. I smiled, a cold, precise expression I hadn't known I possessed. Funny you should mention investors, Mark. I decided to back myself. I gestured to the wall of glass behind me, to the endless dark ocean glittering under the moonlight. Sarah always told me my nerd money was just digital dust, that it could never buy a view like this. She said this was yacht money. I met her gaze, holding it as the color drained from her face. The crowd around us was silent, listening intently. She was right. It turns out I had enough to buy the yacht too, I just preferred the house. The Forbes editor's pen was already moving. Lena's lips curved into a faint, satisfied smile. Sarah looked like a ghost, utterly exposed, her shallow motives laid bare on the altar of my success. They hadn't just been left behind. They had been rendered obsolete. This wasn't revenge. It was a market correction, and their stock had just crashed to zero. So what would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you tell her what she missed out on? Or is quietly buying that dream house and living well the best revenge?